Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. The geniuses at Yale University assert very authoritatively, fact-check, no, the glaciers are not growing in Glacier National Park. We could just assume that academics at Yale University are both competent and honest, or we could look at the satellite imagery for ourselves. This is Google Earth imagery of the Grinnell Glacier at Glacier National Park from 1991. You can see there was a small glacial lake over here and bare rock over here. Now let's look at the same imagery from the year 2020. You can see that the glacial lake has greatly expanded and the bare rock over here is gone. This is 1991 and this is 2020. 1991, 2020. It looks to me like the Grinnell Glacier has expanded over the last 30 years. And it certainly hasn't shrunk. Now let's go back in time 70 years to September 1952. Ice masses of Glacier National Park have been melting fast since the year 1900. Now let's go back almost 100 years to 1923. Glacier Park melting at a rapid rate in scientists' opinion. Dr. Waterman predicted the Sprague Glacier would be gone by the year 1950. And Dr. Elrod of the University of Montana predicted the glaciers would all be gone in just a few years. In 1936, the United States Geologic Survey predicted the glaciers would be gone by the year 1961. In 1952, it was predicted that the glaciers of Glacier National Park would be gone by the year 2000. And in 2009, National Geographic predicted the glaciers would be gone by the year 2020. In 2014, the New York Times predicted the glaciers would be gone by the year 2044. But the reality is that the glaciers have been growing over the last 30 years. And another reality is that Yale Climate Connections is both dishonest and incompetent. The Grinnell Glacier retreated very rapidly from 1850 to 1950, but over the past 30 years it's been growing. 100 years ago, the glaciers of Glacier National Park were retreating so rapidly it was predicted they would all be gone in a few years. So according to NASA, glaciers melt very rapidly during the coldest years on record, and they grow during the hottest years on record. The behavior of glaciers is often cited as being the best evidence of global warming, even when it shows the exact opposite. If we look at Michael Mann's hockey stick, we see the same thing. Glaciers melt when it's cold, and glaciers grow when it's hot. Ice doesn't lie, but climate academics do. Which leads us to our next very assertive fact check from Reuters. Reuters fact check. Hockey stick graph of rising global temperatures is accurate depiction of climate change. Their assertion is absurd, and their journalists lack either the skills or the integrity to engage in this sort of fact checking. And it's the same story at Scientific American. They say that Michael Mann's fake hockey stick graph is an iconic symbol of humanity's contribution to global warming. President Eisenhower warned us about the dangers of a corrupt academia 60 years ago in his farewell address.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor tinkering in his shop has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity. For every old blackboard, there are now hundreds of new electronic computers. The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
And that's exactly what happened. People who wanted to seize control of public policy organized a corrupt group of academics and journalists to push their agenda. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki, and Upala on the web at realclimatescience.com.